K75. I bought it as a filler. I had a 1200 GSA, which is what took out this wrist 5 years ago. Doing 5 miles an hour in the gravel and not paying attention. And when I dropped the bike, the end of the handlebar hit on a rod that was already in the radius. And so the only thing the doc has told me was, no more off-road. So when this K75 came up, I called Keith and said, "Hey, I want that bike." I said, "I'll bring the 1200 over. It needed a new final drive, had 90,000 miles on it. I mean, there were things needed to be done." And I knew Keith could do it. So I told Keith, I said, "Hey, I'll just swap you. You take the R1200 GSA. It needs work. You can do it. And you're going to make good. It'll be a good deal for you." So I had told my wife I was doing this, but it was one of those, I've got a new bike coming home, and she's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, right." Well, the K75 is all white. The other bikes in the garage are darker colors. So when I brought it home, I just slid it in and parked it. Think, yeah, we'll see how long it takes her to notice it. She never got out of her truck. She pulled in the garage, pointed to the right, and said, "What's that?" So that's how she got introduced to that one. But you're talking about walking into a dealership. You guys know Bob Aldridge well, I'm
Yes.
sure. So when the 1250 GSA came out, Bob went into his local dealership. They had the first one they had received sitting there on the floor, and it had the gold. Remember the gold anodized wheels that came on them?
Yes.
Bob told the dealer, he goes, if it didn't have those butt ugly gold wheels, I'd buy it from you right now. And they talked about some other things and left. Bob walked back in the dealership on Saturday because he was getting something done with his bike. The guy had swapped out the wheels, put the new tires on, and had a sold sign sitting on the seat that said Bob
Right.
Aldridge.
Yeah.
He's
Let
like,
me
your
let,
bike
let,
is
let-
your bike is ready.
yeah. Let me tell you a companion story. Back in would have been about January of 1986, in a motorcycle magazine, and I don't remember which one, there was a about a 2-inch square black and white photograph of the K75T.
Hmm.
It was a modification, US only, as far as I can tell, of the K75C, which I had seen.
Right. The C, I've
And
seen
I
it.
and I decided that I really was intrigued by that T model. It came with the double bucket seat, the little trunk, the what they called the international windshield, and side bags.
Hmm.
And I walked into Angle Motors and talking to Mike Jones there, and I said, uh, "Have you got a K75T?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Okay." And then about my office at that point, well, I was still in Topeka then, but I was into Angles at least once a month, if not more. And every time I walked in, I'd say, "Hey, is my bike here yet?" And it turned around to about April. I rode Voni's R65 into Engels on a Saturday morning uh, to buy carburetor parts, gaskets.
Hmm.
Uh, and I walked in, and my normal lippy self said, "Hey, Mike, is my bike here yet?" He says, "Yeah, it's right up there on the floor."
It's
I
already got your
bought
name on it.
I bought it that day, rode it home, and then we had to go back and get Bonnie's R65. And I forgot to buy the carburetor gaskets.
And not only that, he told me I should have a bike just like his. And I said, no, I already have two bikes that I don't need another bike. And I won that argument. I didn't get a K75.
But please tell me you still have
And
the
I wish I
R75.
had.
But please
Yeah.
tell me you still have the R65.
No,
No.
she doesn't.
The
Uh,
the the picture of me on the old R75/6 when I was 13, that bike is still sitting in
mhm,
my garage.
yeah.
My dad had bought it brand new, and I stole it from him shortly after that picture was taken, and it put probably close to 400,000 miles on that bike at this point.
The story about Voni's first BMW is kind of funny. I had traded in my Yamaha 250 on the 750 triple shaft drive Yamaha, the XS 750. And Bonnie was still riding her 250. And I was teaching part-time one course in the planning school at the University of Iowa. And one of the students there, rather privileged fellow, his dad was chairman of the board of the power company there. And he had an old sports car and a R60/5. And he got himself a job with an engineering firm out in San Francisco. And his dad told him if he got rid of his motorcycle and got rid of his old Triumph sports car, his dad would buy him a new car. And so he's trying to peddle this thing to me. And I say, no, I don't need it. And he said, but Voni, your wife should have it. No, I don't need it. And finally, he nagged me at least twice a week for 2 months. And I finally gave him a lowball offer. And the weekend before he was leaving to move to San Francisco, he told me, okay, you can have it. So I bought it and I gave it to her. That was her first motorcycle for Mother's Day.
Mother's Day is good to you.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's
And
great.
that's when we really started traveling with her on that and me on that Yamaha 750.
We lived in Topeka, Kansas, and the people that lived directly across from us, we knew both he and she had BMW motorcycles, and we didn't
Mhm.
at that point. And we were talking about maybe, because we've been reading in the owner's news that there was a national rally in Missoula, Montana. Maybe we'll go. And so we met the couple across from us and they said, yeah, we're thinking about that too. We've never been to a national BMW rally, but maybe that would be fun. And then getting busy with our lives, we didn't see them again until we were in a parade in Missoula, Montana of BMW motorcycles. And they were our neighbors from across the road. Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took the last rally that the Airhead went to. If you remember the Iowa rally, the one in Des Moines was when the R9T Urban GS came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, an old /6 being basically an erector set. I pulled the front fender, pulled the side panels. I had an old rear fender that had been shaved so you could see right through the bike. Put a set of Shinkos on it and basically and wider bars and set it up as a scrambler. And took a picture, and one of the gentlemen from our local club was like, well, when are you going to buy a bike you can actually ride and go places? So I left Dallas, and there was a couple of people that were like, where are you stopping between here and Des Moines? And we'll ride with you. I said, I'm stopping in Des Moines. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm leaving Dallas in the morning. I said, that evening, I've got a regional coordinators meeting at a brew pub downtown Des Moines. And they're like, nah, you go ahead.
Yeah.
So I decided to take the Airhead, and then I took a picture when I got there and I posted it on our club website. And I said, to the member that wanted to know when I was getting a bike I could ride, I don't see his LT up here.
Right.
It caught a little bit of flack, but it was fun. But
Bonnie's
yeah,
first 1,000-mile day was totally by accident. She
you don't get the Iron Butt cert for that.
Yeah.
She was taking a summer school course at Emporia State in Emporia, Kansas, working on her master's degree. And I was doing a seminar at the National in whatever town in North Carolina that was way back when. And she wanted to get there for my seminar. So she, uh, right after she got out of her class in Emporia early afternoon, she headed to the rally in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And she rode for however many miles and then stopped in a motel and slept about 4 hours or 5 hours and got back on the road and
I started to realize if I really got there by 2 o'clock when his seminar was scheduled, that I would have 1,000 miles. I didn't realize that you could go 1,000 miles, sleep in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and not get overtired at all. And it was it was easy to do
it was
that.
accidental, but she did it.
And was that on the RS by any chance?
No, that would have been earlier.
No, that was on one of her several K75s, which
Yeah.
she owned when she wouldn't buy the one I wanted her to.
Yeah, but a K75, especially that police bike with the seats that Michael Corbin made for the police
Yeah,
bikes back then. It's a
right.
rolling couch. When I went from here to Seattle, it was like, I stopped because it got dark and I was afraid of deer. I didn't stop
Yeah.
because I was getting tired.
Right.
I just didn't want to total the bike out on Bambi riding on some of those back roads.
Well,
But
she's had three of the white uh low seat standard models.
mhm,
And she, in 99, when she rode 73,000 plus miles in 6 months in the mileage contest, she rode her R11 RS and one of those three white K75s alternating.
Yep.
But she'd get one and she'd ride it a little bit, but she'd always have another bike that was her favorite, probably Big Red, the R11 RS. And so she'd say, well, I don't ride this bike enough, and we'd sell it. And
But then
then,
I'd miss it, and then I would find another red one and buy it.
well, yeah, she's had a couple of the red K75
Yep.
S.
Yep.
So, so,
Yeah, my problem is I can count on one hand the number of bikes I've actually sold over the years.
yeah,
One of them was a CB 350 that to this day I wish I had hung on to, the old Honda 2-cylinder 350. One was the GSA. And the only other one I ever sold was my very first bike, which was a Yamaha YZ100.
well,
The rest of them tend to hang around and we play
yeah,
Tetris in the garage.
between the two of us, we've owned over 30 BMWs.
Yep.
Some of them were sold, some of them were traded in. The one I wish I still had was the 1983 or 4 R80 GS Paris Dakar with the white tank signed by the Dakar rider and the solo seat with the little
Yep.
rack.
The orange solo seat and the black rack.
I traded that motorcycle in when we bought her R1100 RS. And I wish I'd written a bigger check and not traded that motorcycle in. But you can't win them all.
I think there are a lot of the original owners of the R80 GSs that really wish they still had them, especially when
Yeah.
they look on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah, right.
My problem is if I had one, I would want to ride it, and I look at the values and what's happening to them, and it's like, would I still ride it like I'd want to? And in my mind, I'm like, yes.
Right.
So what's next? What are the next adventures coming up for you guys? Voni, I know I've seen you. I look at your photography that you post a lot because that's one of my hobbies is I shoot with a digital body and vintage lenses. So I enjoy some of the things that you've been working on.
We still own 5 BMWs. We each own a G310 GS.
Mhm.
I still have my K75 police bike. She still has Big Red, which is her R1100 RS, and I'll make a comment about it. And then I've got a K75, 1994 K75 low seat standard. Actually, two of those, but one of them is technically it's in my name, but it's my son's bike, our son's bike. The one that I call his bike is the one that we bought from Phil and Harriet Marvin when she first was diagnosed with cancer. So that's two bikes we bought from them. No, that's the bike we bought from them. You bought the other bike.
Right. And then Keith also had, I guess, if she must have started riding again because he had what was her last bike,
Yeah,
which was another K75C
yeah,
that had been in storage with the RTP.
I think she did start riding it.
Yeah.
Voni's R11 RS is up in Kansas. And it has, as we sit here, 420,000 miles on it.
Well, it should be.
Still running well.
I've got one
There
that's
was a
approaching.
point where I my drive shaft broke when I was over 200,000 miles with that bike. We didn't expect really a drive shaft to last over 200,000 miles, but it did. And when it broke, Paul said, you have to start thinking about what other bike you're going to buy, because this isn't going to last forever. He didn't know, but he said it wasn't going to last forever. So I found online an R11 RSL, which means it had also the lowers that were red. It had red wheels. It had red bags. It was like, if anything could be more perfect than Big Red, it was Big Red too. So I bought it.
For you.
I put 175,000 miles on that bike, and then I sold it and went back to riding Big Red because she wasn't done. I coaxed her into riding the Iron Butt Rally in 2003 by telling her if she would just complete that for me, that she could rest and she didn't have to go forever. But I would really like to have her be there to finish the Iron Butt Rally. Paul had a K75 that had 340,000 miles or so on it. And my Big Red went over 300,000 miles during that rally. And the only mechanical problem we had was my headlight slipped and it started aiming up at the sky, which is not really good for night riding.
No.
But Paul spent an hour or two figuring out how to jury rig it.
It
still has the shop rag on it that he wound around the wires to make
it. Had the screw adjuster for vertical aim, and somehow that thing backed out and came loose.
Right.
Now there's a lever arm, there's a barrel, and I'm trying to thread that. I'm trying to get it to thread in, and I couldn't. And there was a spring that held, once you threaded it in, there was a spring that held it forward. And I couldn't compress that spring and get it to thread, but I managed to get it to thread in. But now there was no spring to hold that lever in the correct position.
Right.
I took a shop rag, I balled it up into a round ball. I stuck it at the end of the adjuster and wrapped it with a zip tie. And that's what held the headlight in position, and that shop rag's still in there. I've swapped the zip tie a couple of times.
He didn't tell me how serious that was. I just thought, well, why is he getting so impatient with this fix? Because he can fix anything, I know. Right. And so I had all this faith. He wasn't really sure he could fix that. We really couldn't have finished the rally with a headlight.
This was after the second day of the Iron Butt Rally. We had 9 more days to go, and you're gonna ride some after dark, and with the headlight flopping up and down and not aiming it down. It was But your question is what are we doing now? We mostly ride the 310 GSs locally here around Texas, West Texas, Big Bend. We've got the R11 RS and the K75 up at a house we own in Kansas, and those are our summertime travel bikes.
So will we see you guys in Lebanon, Tennessee in June?
Yeah, we're planning on
Definitely.
being there.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're doing. We're not, we're not doing 2 months at a time trips anymore,
Right.
which
Neither
is
am
what
I.
we used to. Yeah, that's what we used to do. Our son at that time was living in the house in Kansas and babysitting our cat over the summer. And we'd get on the motorcycles and just travel and go camping almost always up to the Pacific Northwest
Hmm.
until forest fire smoke got to be sufficiently aggravating and sickening that I don't go up there anymore.
Right. Good deal. Yeah, I'm ready. My plan is to be riding by spring to build the mileage by May so that I can make the trip to Lebanon in June. The nice thing is normally it's a day ride from Dallas to Nashville. So if I split it up in 2 days, it shouldn't be
Right.
too much of a stretch.
Right.
Convincing my wife of that is another story. I may wind up with a vehicle and a trailer and take the bike up. But one way or the other, I will be in registration and greeting everybody as they come in.
Well, good.
But no, I really enjoy talking to you guys and can't wait to see you come June.